She stepped into the room alone, cash piled high, diamonds sparkling, no witnesses in sight. What happened next stunned her wealthy employer into silence. The safe was wide open. Bundles of cash, each wrapped in $10,000 stacks, lay untouched. A diamond-encrusted watch caught the morning sunlight filtering through the plantation shutters. The study was eerily still, almost too quiet. Gregory Bellamy hadn't shared a word, not with his assistant, not with his lawyer, and not even with Carla, the woman he'd been casually dating for 4 months. Only he knew what he had done that morning at exactly 6:45 a.m. in his Dallas home. He left his most private room unlocked, his most valuable possessions exposed. It wasn't a mistake. It was a deliberate test to see if she would take the bait. Delilah Moore, the woman who had worked in his home for nearly 6 years. She knew the floor plans better than most architects. She never touched what she didn't need to, didn't gossip, never asked for favors, and never once showed up late, even during city-wide tornado warnings. But trust, Gregory had learned, is fragile. He sat quietly in the guest room, sipping black coffee, eyes glued to the hallway camera on his laptop. The sound was off. He didn't need to hear anything. All he wanted was to watch. For the first several minutes, nothing happened. The camera showed only the hallway bathed in soft morning light, dust particles drifting lazily. Then, at 7:13 a.m., she appeared. Delilah entered the frame in her usual light blue uniform. Her hair was pulled back neatly, held with a gray headband. A small basket of cleaning supplies hung from her arm. She moved neither hurriedly nor slowly, just steadily doing her job. Gregory's finger hovered over the pause button, but he held back. He wanted to see what she would do, uninterrupted, because for months, whispers had been planted in his ear. "You really trust her with all that stuff?" his business partner Clayton asked once during a bourbon tasting. "She's polite, sure," Carla said a few weeks ago, eyeing Delilah polishing silver in the dining room. "But don't be fooled." Even his sister had chimed in. "Not everyone's honest just because they've been around a long time, Greg." The doubts had slowly crept in, not enough to accuse her, but enough to watch, enough to justify this test. Now, Delilah approached the study door, cracked just enough to peek inside. She paused briefly, then stepped in. Gregory leaned closer to the screen, eyes narrowed. The camera didn't show inside the room, only the hallway and part of the doorway, but her body language, her pace, everything would speak volumes. She stayed inside longer than he expected, 3, maybe 4 minutes. Then she emerged, calm and collected, no hurry and empty-handed. Gregory scratched his chin. To understand why this moment mattered so much, you'd have to know who Delilah Moore was, and more importantly, who Gregory believed her to be. Delilah hadn't come into his life through an agency or online service, but by word of mouth. In 2018, his former driver recommended her. "She's good people," he said. "Quiet, honest, hardworking, no shortcuts." And she was all of that. From day one, Delilah carried herself with a quiet dignity. She never called him sir, only Mr. Bellamy, always with a kind yet distant smile. No small talk, no complaints, just showing up and doing her job right. By year 2, Gregory trusted her with keys, security codes, even alarm overrides when he traveled. It never crossed his mind to worry. But by year 4, the whispers started. Not that Delilah ever did anything wrong. She never had. But Gregory's world was full of people who had learned to trust cautiously. His circle wasn't warm and cozy. The men he dined with at upscale steakhouses didn't grow up knowing their housekeepers by name. Help came and went. There was always someone new, never someone permanent. So when Gregory casually mentioned over scotch that his housekeeper had been with him for 5 years and had full access, eyebrows raised. "You leave cash lying around, jewelry out in the open? Do you know her story?" It all began there, quietly eroding something Gregory didn't even know was vulnerable, his unwavering confidence, his pride in trusting someone who didn't quite fit the usual mold. As one colleague put it, "She's nice enough, but remember, desperate people sometimes do desperate things." Gregory never liked hearing that, but he never argued either. Instead, he started locking drawers more carefully, making sure the study door was shut every night, watching how much he left out, without ever saying a word. Yet, Delilah remained the same, always punctual, always courteous, always asking if she could replenish supplies before they ran low. There was one afternoon, maybe 2 years ago, when Gregory caught her quietly humming while ironing his dress shirts. Something about that simple moment made him pause. She seemed peaceful, focused, proud of her work, even if no one else would ever see those shirts outside his closet. He never told her, but in that instant, a wave of guilt washed over him. Maybe that's why this test weighed on him more than he expected. Deep down, he knew it wasn't about her. It was about himself and how he'd allowed others' doubts to cloud his judgment. But the test was already in motion. The camera was rolling. The safe was left wide open, and all he could do was wait for what would come next. The real surprise, though, wasn't just what she did, it was how she did it. Gregory hadn't blinked for over a minute, watching the hallway camera feed with the intensity of a man watching a game-winning shot. But this wasn't a game. This was his home, his fortune, his choice to trust or not. The timestamp read 7:13 a.m. Delilah had entered the study exactly 28 seconds earlier. The camera couldn't see inside, but Gregory knew what was visible from the doorway. The open safe, the diamond-encrusted PC Philippe watch, a velvet pouch of gold coins, and nearly $120,000 in cash, not exactly hidden. The hallway stayed silent. Gregory tapped his fingers nervously on the laptop's edge. The stillness in the room felt louder than the footage itself. His mind drifted to a dinner 3 weeks prior at Ocean Prime when Clayton had brought a private security expert from Austin. Halfway through the meal, Gregory mentioned Delilah. The expert leaned in and said, "Doesn't matter how long she's been there. Anyone will steal if the opportunity feels safe enough." At the time, Gregory had nodded, half listening. Now those words echoed in his mind. Was this the moment? Back on screen, Delilah hadn't reappeared. Gregory leaned forward and fast-forwarded the footage. 10 seconds, 20 seconds, then 30 more. At 7:17 a.m., she finally stepped back into view. Her expression was neutral, not blank, not nervous, just normal. She closed the study door behind her without a second glance, picked up the supply basket she'd left on the floor, and walked on. If Gregory hadn't seen the footage, he wouldn't have known anything was out of the ordinary. But having seen it, something gnawed at him. Her body language wasn't what he expected. She didn't look startled or tempted. She didn't linger like someone weighing risks. She was simply Delilah. He pressed play again, fast-forwarding to 7:35 a.m. Another camera in the kitchen showed her washing apples, folding towels, checking her phone, likely a grocery list. Nothing unusual, no glances toward the camera, no twitch, no hesitation. Gregory closed his laptop, but one question lingered. What exactly had she done in that room? Downstairs, Delilah was wiping the coffee table when she paused, her eyes drifting toward the staircase. She didn't hear anything, but something felt off. She quietly returned to the study. The door was now fully closed, just as she'd left it. She stepped inside to check that nothing had moved. The safe was still wide open, the cash and watch untouched. She stared at them, not in shock or confusion, but with a tired awareness. Then, she pulled a sticky note from the desk drawer and scribbled 4 simple lines. Forgot to close this, took nothing, locked it, D. She gently closed the safe, turned the dial, clicked it locked, and placed the note right on top. No drama, no hesitation. She didn't call Gregory, no voicemail, didn't mention a thing when he came down later for water. She just carried on, because in her mind, this wasn't about proving anything. It was simply what she would do any day of the week. But upstairs, Gregory was about to realize What she didn't say spoke volumes. Gregory stared at the safe. The sticky note rested perfectly centered on top, as if placed there deliberately. 4 simple lines. No accusations, no panic, just a calm, clear message, like someone noting the weather. Forgot to close this? Took nothing. Locked it. D. He didn't reach for it immediately. Instead, he stood still for about 10 seconds, absorbing the moment, the slight slant of the handwriting, the way she signed with only an initial, as if to keep it casual. But this was no small thing. It was significant. Slowly, Gregory bent down, turned the dial, and confirmed the safe was locked. Entering the code, he opened it carefully. Everything was exactly as he left it. The cash untouched, coins neatly stacked, the watch perfectly positioned on its velvet cushion. He exhaled deeply through his nose, and then felt it. Not relief, not pride. Shame. It settled quietly but fully, tightening around his chest like an invisible belt pulled too tight. He'd set a trap, a silent accusation, and she responded not with anger or theatrics, but with respect and care. She hadn't even told him about it. Gregory pulled up the hallway camera footage again, rewinding to the precise moment she stepped into the study. He zoomed in, watching her enter, pause, glance down at the open safe, then back toward the door. She stood still for about 5 seconds, clearly weighing something, not whether to steal, but what to do next. Then, deliberately, she crossed the room, closed the safe, turned the dial, and walked over to the drawer. She pulled out a sticky note, wrote her message, and left it there. No rush, no glance at the camera. Gregory doubted she even noticed it was there. This wasn't a performance, it was principle. Rubbing his temples, he sank onto the armchair by the window. The house was quiet, except for the faint hum of the dishwasher downstairs. His thoughts drifted back 3 years to when he returned home foggy from gallbladder surgery, hungry and frustrated. Carla hadn't visited. None of his friends had checked in. But Delilah? She'd left a casserole in the fridge with a note. Heat for 25 minutes. Don't eat it cold. You'll hate it. He never thanked her. He never wondered why she cared enough to do that, until now. Downstairs, Delilah wiped the last section of the granite countertop when she heard footsteps, quick, purposeful steps crossing the house. She straightened as Gregory appeared in the kitchen, still in his white t-shirt and jogging pants, laptop tucked under his arm, looking tired. She greeted calmly, "Morning, Mr. Bellamy." He hesitated, then cleared his throat. "Delilah, I saw the note." She nodded once. "Just wanted to make sure it was locked. Thought maybe you forgot." "I didn't forget," he said softly. She said nothing, just tilted her head, as if she'd known. "I left it open," he confessed, eyes fixed on the marble floor. Still, she didn't flinch. "I was testing you," he admitted. 5 seconds of silence stretched between them before she finally said, "I figured." Gregory looked up. "I wasn't sure," she added, "but it crossed my mind." He stepped forward, placing the laptop on the counter. "I feel like a complete fool." Delilah offered the softest half smile he'd seen in years. "Not a fool," she said gently. "Just a man listening to the wrong voices." He let those words sink in, but what she said next stayed with him forever. Gregory stood silently as Delilah rinsed a rag in the sink, his lips pressed tight, jaw clenched without realizing. All the whispers, the doubts from friends and colleagues, they suddenly sounded loud and hollow. Finally, he asked, "Why didn't you say anything?" She folded the rag neatly over the sink's edge. "Didn't think it needed saying. You left it open. I closed it. Simple." "But I was testing you," he repeated. "I know," she replied softly, "but I'm not the one who needed the test." That hit him like a silk-wrapped truth. Gregory's face flushed, not with anger, but with the weight of being quietly called out. "You ever take anything from me?" he asked, voice harsher than intended. She turned fully to face him, meeting his eyes. "No, not a dollar, not a fork, not even a stick of gum." He breathed out sharply. "I believe you." Delilah didn't nod or say thanks. She let the truth linger where it belonged. Gregory glanced out the back window, lost in thought. The sun climbed higher, casting long beams across the kitchen floor. Gregory recalled something his father once told him when he was younger and sharper. True integrity doesn't shout. It doesn't wear a name tag. You have to be still enough to notice it. He hadn't been still in a long time. Slowly, he sat at the kitchen table, feeling a weight settle deep in his chest. "I wasn't always this kind of man," he murmured to himself. Delilah raised an eyebrow but said nothing. "I used to trust people, didn't need cameras or tricks. Somewhere along the way, the money got louder than my gut." She leaned against the counter, arms folded, listening. "I've had people steal from me," he continued. "An old assistant took my AMX for 2 months before I caught him. A cousin used my name to pull a loan. Another guy sold a whole crate of wine from my supplier. People I gave too much to." "That's tough," Delilah said softly. He nodded. "It is, but none of it was your fault." "No," she replied, "but it made me look guilty by default." That hit him like a sharp blade. He'd never spoken it aloud, or even fully accepted it in his own mind. But she was right. Somewhere inside, he'd let bias steer his thoughts. Not hatred or malice, just suspicion whispered in closed rooms and disguised as advice. Finally, he said, "I owe you an apology." Delilah blinked slowly. "You do?" Her response surprised him. No forgiveness granted freely, no brush off, just quiet space for him to do what was right. "I'm sorry, Gregory, I should never have doubted you." She gave a small nod. "Appreciate you saying that." He sat with her words for a moment, then asked quietly, "Why didn't you just quit?" Delilah tilted her head. "Because I didn't take the job for your approval. I took it because it paid fair. The hours were steady. And I don't walk away just because people disappoint me. If I did, I'd never keep a job." Her tone wasn't bitter, just honest, shaped by experience. Gregory rubbed his face, seeing her in a new light, not just as help or someone who cleaned around his success, but as someone who carried heavier burdens in quiet rooms no one saw. "Would it be weird if I gave you a raise?" he asked with a half smile, trying to break the tension. She chuckled. "Not weird, just late." They laughed, softly, genuinely. For the first time that morning, Gregory felt like a man again. Not a suspicious boss, not a man testing others, but someone who finally understood something deeply after getting it wrong. The next day, he did something Delilah never expected. At 7 a.m. sharp, Delilah arrived like every Monday. The gate code worked. The front door was unlocked as usual, but there was a note taped inside the door. "Come to the patio. Coffee's ready." Gee, she blinked. Unsure if she was walking into a conversation or a situation, she set down her bag and followed the soft jazz and gentle breeze drifting from the back. Gregory sat at the outdoor table, navy robe over a white tee, slippers on. 2 steaming mugs waited. Next to hers was a folded envelope with her name. "Morning," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "Hope you don't mind. Figured we'd start today differently." Delilah slid into the seat, tired but composed. "You okay?" "I am now," he said. "Been thinking a lot since yesterday." She said nothing, just waited. He took a slow sip, then exhaled. "Delilah, I disrespected you." The words came plain, no fluff. "Didn't say it yesterday, but it needs repeating. I tested you. Let people who don't know you plant doubt in my mind. I trusted whispers over 6 years of proof." He leaned back. "That's not just wrong, it's weak." Delilah raised an eyebrow. "You said it, I didn't." He smirked. "Fair." Birds chirped softly. The patio heater hummed quietly. "I didn't expect the note," he admitted. "Expected you to ignore it, confront me, or maybe just walk away forever. But you did the one thing I didn't see coming. You handled it with grace, quiet dignity, like it didn't shake you." She looked down at her coffee. "It did rattle me, but I've been rattled before. Doesn't mean I break." Gregory nodded slowly. "I wish I had your strength." She looked at him, really saw him, not guarded, polished, or wealthy, but human. "I'm trying," he added. She softened. "Trying's a good place to start." He slid the envelope toward her. "I know you're not in this for the money," he said. "This is a bonus. Not for honesty. You don't get rewarded for what's right. It's for staying, even when I made you feel small." Delilah hesitated, then opened the envelope. It wasn't cash. It was a check, a whole year's salary, paid up front. Delilah blinked. "Gregory, no strings attached?" she asked. He nodded. "Use it however you want. Take time off. Fix your car. Hell, even walk away and never come back if you want. I just want to make things right, as much as I can." She stared at the check for a moment before folding it carefully and slipping it into her bag. No big fuss. "Thank you," she said quietly. Gregory cleared his throat, eyes glistening but holding back tears. "Ever think about quitting?" "Twice," she answered honestly. "Once when Carla told me I should smile more, and once when I caught one of your old friends rummaging through my purse in the laundry room." Gregory blinked. "You never told me that." She shrugged. "Didn't want to make a mess." He left 5 minutes later anyway. Gregory leaned back, stunned. "Why did you stay?" Delilah looked at him steadily. "Because I knew who I was. I was waiting to see if you'd figure out who you were." He couldn't find words. His voice had left him. They sat in silence, but it wasn't heavy. It was clear, like the calm after a storm. Delilah stood. "I'll start on the den." "You don't have to work today," Gregory said quickly. "Take the day off." She smiled. "I know, but I want to." She walked back inside, the same calm step, steady presence. Gregory stayed on the patio, the untouched coffee cooling before him. He realized he didn't need cameras anymore. He needed character, and it had been living under his roof all along. 2 weeks later, the cameras were gone. Not just the hallway one, but every single one. Gregory had the entire surveillance system professionally removed. Delilah never asked why, but when she passed the blank wall where the little black lens had been, she noticed. For the first time since she started working there, she smiled when no one was looking. Something had shifted. Gregory had changed. Not overnight, not like in a movie, but in quiet, consistent ways that truly matter. He began greeting her in the mornings with more than a nod. He asked if she needed anything before the weekend. He even stopped making casual jokes to friends about having someone keep the house in order. "Delilah Moore runs this place better than I do," he said once, half laughing while showing a friend around. "If she ever leaves, I'll have to sell the whole house." She heard him from the hallway and paused, not because she needed the compliment, but because she knew it was real. It wasn't for show or PR. It was honest. Gregory had stopped trying to prove things to others. Now he was simply trying to be better for himself. One afternoon, Gregory's younger nephew came to visit, a college senior with too much cologne and a mouth that never stopped. While Gregory was upstairs, the kid wandered into the kitchen where Delilah was slicing peaches. Leaning on the counter, he asked, "You really been working here 6 years?" "7 next month," she replied without looking up. "And you like it?" "I do." He tilted his head. "Ever think about doing more? Like managing a crew or working hotels or something?" Delilah finally looked up. "More according to who?" He shrugged, suddenly quiet. "Don't mistake quiet work for small work," she added. The nephew left the kitchen a little humbled. Later, Gregory asked what they talked about. She gave him the short version. He chuckled. "Hope he listens. That boy's going to learn his lessons the hard way." Delilah smirked. "Most of us do." Time moved on. Nothing dramatic, but the whole house felt warmer, lighter. Gregory hosted fewer dinners with men who made sideways comments. He kept a smaller circle, mentored young business owners in Oak Cliff, and even attended a local panel on racial equity and hiring practices. He didn't speak on stage, just sat and listened. A few months later, he asked Delilah to help create a scholarship fund in her name. At first, she refused. "I'm just doing my job." "I know," Gregory said, "and that's exactly why it should bear your name." She agreed. The Moore Standard Fund quietly launched to support single mothers returning to the workforce. Delilah didn't attend the ceremony. She had work that day, but when Gregory gave a short speech, he said this: "Some people show who they are loudly, with flash and fanfare. Others show up quietly, day after day, until you realize they're the ones you should have noticed all along." The greatest lessons don't always come from the boardroom or the loudest voices. They come from those who simply show up, those who don't need an audience to be great. Gregory learned that the hard way. Delilah? She just kept showing up, not for praise, not for a paycheck, but because doing right never needed an audience. If this story touched you, even just a little, maybe it's time to rethink who you trust. And remember, not everyone who looks like you is a friend, and not everyone who serves you is beneath you. Watch the quiet ones. They may be carrying more honor than those at the head of the table. Take a moment to share this with someone who still judges by paycheck or position. Because true character isn't what you say when everyone's watching. It's what you do when no one is.